I don't know, guys. Are movies back? Because I'm feeling a hell of a lot like movies are back.
First, Project Hail Mary, and now we have had a suspicious amount of chatter this past week concerning a plot twist in an original movie that comes out in April. I mean, what is going on here? Now, I did see a grown 260-pound man dressed in a Luigi costume today at the movies. I did, and I'll grant you that may be a little worrisome, even though I kind of like his vibe. But I think the drama is yet another movie that has come out in the past 365 some days that feels fresh, layered, and like a sign of the vitality of the film industry. The drama is about the build up to the wedding of Charlie and Emma, fiancés that seem pretty happy for all intents and purposes. But after Emma makes a revelation to her husband to be and some of their friends, Charlie is left shell shocked, and both of them start to see their worlds unraveling right before what's supposed to be the happiest moment of their lives.
This is now the second time in 3 years that Zendaya has bet on herself to sell a spring movie, but with challengers, she was very much the main and sole attraction, with Feist and O'Connor riding her coattails. Here, it was more of a joint effort, where both Zendaya Mania and Pattinson's Resurgence were both forces working in unison to make this film a success at the box office, and I think they're both going to come out of this as winners, and not just for commercial reasons.
Two really good performances here. Not Oscar worthy, not ones that will leave you gobsmacked, but ones that will leave you impressed. Pattinson has really doubled down on behaving like a goofy screw up in his past couple of movies. In 13 months, he's appeared in Mickey 17, Die My Love, and now this. It's evident that he likes being a mess. He likes being the butt of the joke, and he's very good at it. And he really knows how to shade his performances differently. He's a mess in this just like he was a mess in Mickey 17, but this performance doesn't feel like it's aping the other one. I enjoyed Mickey 17 even more than this movie, but I don't know if I ever felt pain for the titular character. I did feel pain for Charlie and the predicament he finds himself in, and so much of that is not because of what Charlie goes through, but how Pattinson anguishes through it all.
Which brings me to Zendaya. I don't think I've ever been anti Zendaya per se, but I certainly have never found her as hypnotic as other people do. I think she's straight up bad in the Spider Man movies. I don't like her in Dune, but I will say there, I have a bigger gripe with the overall performance style the cast adopts, so it's not just exclusively her in that case. And I like her in Challengers. She was putting butts in seats for that movie, but I do think she was kind of outdone in her own vehicle by Feist and O'Connor.
Across all those performances, she was underexpressing. She wasn't girl bossing her way through these movies, but she did come off as this kind of one note grump, and it never quite moved me. This is as good as I've seen her. She plays a character who was ugly and lonely as a child, and she does a bang up job of portraying someone who noticeably hasn't gotten over that, who still acts meek and like an outcast, and like someone who wants to crawl back into their personal shell. She very much was able to create an attitude for someone who became attractive later in life but carries forth insecurities from her childhood and teenage years, and it's not like a lot of performances I've seen in recent memory. And I think what's additionally impressive is that these performances, Pattinson's and Zendaya's, don't live in echo chambers either. I think both of these actors understood that it wasn't enough to be good on their own. The chemistry had to work here, and it absolutely does. Everyone else? Yeah, I'd say everyone else does good work. No real weak link to single out here, even though they don't have nearly as much work to do as the two leads. And then we have the big reveal, which I am not going to talk about, but I will talk around. What the drama really wants you to mull over is intentions versus actions, and it throws a lot of questions at the viewer. Does the firm intention to do something horrific make the intention holder horrific themselves? What about a person who didn't have a single urge to do something wrong, but in a matter of 10 seconds does something really bad and then it's over? Who's actually worse in that situation? Who deserves our judgment? It asks about people intending to do something bad or even doing something bad but getting bailed out. Like, does that matter if there were going to be disastrous consequences, but if they're essentially saved by outside forces, should that be factored into the judgment equation? And then it suggests all these other questions about the information we owe to partners and can people change. But I will say, I don't think the film is quite as good when it's going broad in that manner. Like the questions about owing our partner's information and people changing, those are more sweeping questions. And this film is at its best when it's a bit more granular about intentions versus actions and how we as a society judge both. And I'll say the film does not browbeat. Christopher Borgli, I think that's how you pronounce his name, wrote this, and only once did it feel like his voice kind of took over a character. Like one moment, Charlie is basically trying to get a point across that everyone can go to really dark places, and that moment was eye rolling. That wasn't the character talking. That was Borgli using the character to get his opinion out to the world, but no other moment feels like that. Everything else feels honest. Everywhere else, the characters don't merely serve as vessels for Borgli to get some hot takes out, they are honestly reacting to Emma's revelation like real people would. And that to me is the biggest accomplishment of this script.
Meanwhile, the biggest failure of the script has to be the comedy element. I have to imagine that part of the reason why this was called the drama is because it's not a drama at all. It's an aspirational cringe comedy. And while the cringe part is so nailed here, I can't help but feel they came up really short when it came to nailing the comedy. The film excelled at making me feel uncomfortable. There were moments where I wanted to outright leave the theater. But at the same time, when you think of the great cringe comedies that we see, whether in TV or movie form, The Eric Andre Show, The Office, 40-Year-Old Virgin, Borat, Bridesmaids, After Hours, the list goes on. What they all have in common is that, yes, there are moments where you want to look away desperately from the screen. But there are other moments where you cannot look away because what is transpiring is just so outrageously hilarious. The lack of successful jokes here, it became all the more apparent near the end of the movie when a replacement DJ comes to the wedding. Because this guy, within 90 seconds of screen time, maybe tops, nearly steals the MVP of the movie. He is that good in that limited screen time. He's the only person in this who is truly laugh out loud funny. And I will give some credit to Alana Haim because she did get a more mild laugh out of me when she asks Charlie a question in her office space. But man, there's just no comparison to make between him and any other member of this cast. And I feel as though if everyone else was half as funny as him, a quarter as funny as him, the film would have been better for it.
And I'll commend the drama for actually trying to plot out jokes as opposed to Project Hail Mary, which just relied on Gosling to be his usual self for laughs, but the hit rate here is sadly low. The theater I was in laughed less at this than at Project Hail Mary, which to me is a major indictment. With the DJ, he captivated the whole theater immediately. I mean, the guy was a star, and that energy really could have benefited other parts of the movie. Not because this was so dire or maudlin at the beginning, but because he was fantastic, both lines and delivery, and the film could have used more of that pizzazz. If you're going to be a dark comedy, you have to nail the dark and the light, and even as the wedding ceremony fully broke down at the end, only the most minor character was able to get a rise out of me. I was tense when the film wanted me to be tense, but was largely immune to its sense of humor, which holds this one back for me. I also want to talk about the directorial and editing style of this film because as I was watching it and seeing these micro montages play out near the beginning, and then these brief but frequent reality interruptions, and then getting a sense of how this was cut, and seeing these time jumps that didn't make 100% logical sense, I was thinking to myself, this is really reminiscent of the films of Woody Allen. And as I've been like hearing about the film throughout the week, I in retrospect, can't believe that name was not uttered once. And then, I was finding out about Borgli's past, and then I became really surprised I did not hear about the name Woody Allen once. This reminded me so much of Annie Hall and Broadway Danny Rose, and Love and Death in particular. This feels really indebted to Love and Death. And yeah, if you are repulsed by Allen's tendencies, you're going to be annoyed here. I'm fond of those movies, so I actually found it neat to see a 21st century rendition of that mode. But there were times where I was like, yeah, this conversation doesn't belong in this setting. It should have happened at an earlier juncture in the story. It doesn't make sense that hours are going by and they're together in the house, but no major fight has broken out between them. The more I think about the week of their wedding, the more I feel robbed of conversations that should have happened between them and that we should have been witness to. And while Alan could kind of get away with coloring outside the lines with respect to time jumps because it was more standard rom-com fare, Emma's disclosure is so big in this that I think Borgley could have afforded to be a bit more meticulous in the thoughts of Emma and Charlie hour by hour.
But overall, this is the type of movie that I want to see from A24. A story that is original and adult and perhaps even scandalous to the point where, if not for A24's intercession, this would not have seen the light of day. The pursuit of those stories is what made the studio interesting in the first place. And I hope they're rewarded this weekend, not just for their faith in this project, but also for the courage and perhaps even slight stupidity of going against the Mario Galaxy movie. Now, I don't think there was too much overlap in audiences, but who knows? I feel like there could have been some parents that maybe did see this, but just don't because of the burnout of going to the movies and taking their kids to Mario. I don't know. I commend A24, but I also feel like maybe you should have moved this. But in any event, I really liked this. I would give it 7.8, 7.9. I feel like it could almost be like the black bag of this year, where it's like right at the top of the 3.5 kind of rating for me on Letterboxd, and I think it could be going up to a 4. It just is a matter of rewatching it. I can't say it's great yet. I wouldn't be opposed to rewatching it and seeing if some things kind of improve and kind of the faults I have kind of dissipate more and more. But yeah, I can't quite say that it's great yet. I would say that it's a very, very good movie. I do think it's worth your time. I would give it a recommend. And yeah, thank you for watching my review of the drama, and I will see you for the next Lightspeed Brothers project.